6 extreme months, one absolute legend, in 9 ECW matches. You best believe I was pleased with that when I came up with it. Rey Mysterio is a man of many mysteries, like how is he still going in 2025? Especially with one eye, but we're not talking about that. Rey Mysterio had 9 matches in ECW before debuting in WCW at the 96 Great American Bash. So I thought it might be interesting to go through the timeline of his entire ECW run and explore as far as his arrival in World Championship Wrestling. In this video, we'll see how Rey first got booked in ECW. Then we'll focus on every time he appeared on Hardcore TV, every match and segment, and we'll look at how his run played out. On August 26, 1995, ECW ran an event at the ECW Arena. According to a recap from the event published in the Wrestling Observer, Paul Heyman went on a lengthy tirade about WCW, Eric Bischoff, and even Ted Turner. The reason for this around half an hour long rant is that WCW had recently signed away 3 of Paul's top stars, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Chris Benoit, to coincide with the debut of Nitro. WCW also brought in but didn't sign Sabu around this time, but he was on the outs with ECW, having fallen out with Heyman. Somewhere within the speech, Heyman talked about someday hoping that all 3 would return, and made the point of saying that all the other regulars, like Public Enemy and 911, weren't going anywhere, and that the Steiners were staying, and that they've reached a deal with AAA, and that Rey Mysterio would wrestle Psychosis at the next show, September 16th. Paul's idea was to look to Mexico to bring in new talent to fill in the void left by those he had lost, though many of the wrestlers I'll mention later in this video would also end up in WCW. On the September 12th episode of Hardcore TV, Joey Styles would tease the upcoming debuts of Rey Mysterio and Psychosis, even showing a short clip from AAA. Later in the hour, they would again hype the debuts of Rey and Psychosis for the September 16th show. Since 1992, when Rey was just 17, he had been wrestling Psychosis in AAA, and while both had wrestled for AAA in California, ECW would be the biggest break they'd had so far, working for a US promotion. Little did the ECW Arena fans know quite what they were in for, as Rey and Psychosis were about to present them with wrestling unlike what had been shown to them before. At Gangsta's Paradise from the ECW Arena, Rey and Psychosis would finally make their debut. It would later air as the main event of the September 26th episode of Hardcore TV. Throughout the match, Psychosis uses his being the bigger wrestler, sometimes even standing on Rey and throwing him around the ring. Psychosis, who is also older than Rey by 3 years, bullies Rey for the vast majority of the match, and Rey takes an absolute beating until Psychosis misses this leap into the corner. Later on in the match, he tries a dive to the outside, only for Rey to hold up a chair to his face, in a lot safer way than Jericho did at the 2001 Royal Rumble. If you know, you know. I normally don't acknowledge commentary lines, but Joey Styles notes when Psychosis hits a rather impressive looking senton that he doesn't know what to call it, but what a maneuver won't cut it. Rey then hits a dive. Well, I assume he hit Psychosis, because they filmed it beautifully, showing Rey seemingly diving into the abyss, or as Styles calls it, the second row. When the two get back in the ring, Rey hits a Frankensteiner off the ropes and pins his foe, and the two receive a standing ovation from the crowd. The match is just about 10 minutes long, but it leaves the fans wanting more, a lot more, while Styles' commentary hints that we'll see these two again. Rey's next match would air on the October 17th 95 episode of Hardcore TV, and he would again face Psychosis, this time in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Also on this night, Konnan would make his debut for ECW. Pre-match, Rey comes out to Sad But True by Metallica, kind of an odd sounding choice, and ring announcer Joel Gertner, not yet the smut peddler he would later become in ECW, announced both men in Spanish as a tribute to them. From the opening bell, this time the two charge at each other. Rey wins the first fall early, within about a minute, as the fans go nuts. When we come back from an ad break, Rey goes back on the attack. You might notice these images are sometimes quite blurry, and that's because Rey moves so damn fast. When Psychosis gets on offense, he, much like in the last match, starts throwing Rey around. Psychosis catches Rey attempting a moonsault, and reverses it with a tombstone to secure his first fall. As the final fall begins, Psychosis powerbombs Rey through a table. He lays Rey on a second table and sentons him through it. Rey also at one point starts throwing chairs, but it's not enough to come back. Finally, Psychosis hits a twisting senton that he tried in the first match onto a chair, and gets the 3 and the win. This match is frankly everything turned up from the previous. More flying, more weapons, and more intense. It's easy to see why in 1995, if you hadn't seen these two before, why you might love their matches. Following this match, we get a Hype Central segment where all the upcoming big matches are promoted, and Rey and Psychosis' next bout is already set. But this time, it isn't one-on-one. On the October 24th Hardcore TV, Rey Mysterio appears briefly in what has become known as a Pulp Fiction promo. This is a series of brief, sometimes stitched together promos by lots of roster members hyping their ongoing feuds, to the tune of Dick Dale's version of Mizzaloo, which is best known from Pulp Fiction. As part of the video, we get our first sighting of Konnan as he teases an upcoming tag team match while Rey stands behind him. Rey Mysterio's third ECW match would be this tag team bout, which would air on November 14th. In a match billed as Extreme Lucha Libre, Rey would team up with Konnan to face off with Psychosis one more time, and his tag team partner would be La Parka, making his one and only ECW appearance. When we get to the match, we skip the entrances for what is billed as a 1-hour time limit match. Mysterio and Psychosis start the match with fast chain wrestling, but a couple of minutes in we get a rather annoying jump cut to later on, indicating that we're only being shown highlights, but clearly there were a lot of highlights. We then see an exchange between Rey and La Parka, including a moment where La Parka catches Rey and does his trademark strut while carrying him across the ring. Another amazing highlight we see is Rey hitting a Hurricane Rana on Psychosis, who's sitting on Konnan's shoulders. In a rather unexpected turn for ECW, after dives by Rey and Konnan, referee John Finnegan counts out Psychosis and La Parka, and Rey and Konnan are declared the winners while the crowd boos furiously. It's impossible to judge the match given that it aired in clipped up form, but it certainly looked like a great match until the crowd weren't happy with the ending. On the subject of Konnan, he would end up having a 3-month run in ECW, debuting on October 7th in a match with the Sandman for the ECW World title. His last match would come in January at House Party, where he would again lose to the Sandman for the ECW title. The next time we see Rey Mysterio on ECW TV would be the November 28th episode. First he appears in a promo with Konnan, where they're quickly interrupted by the Dudleys, but not as you might know them. Bubba Ray Dudley, who at this time was a comedy character with a stuttering gimmick, along with Dances with Dudley, the result of the fictitious Daddy Dudley's time on a Native American reservation. If you're interested, I have an old video on this channel where I recap all of the ECW Dudleys. In this skit, Bubba asks for Konnan's autograph, and that appears to be it. Later in the episode, we get Ray's 4th ECW match, kind of. Rey would challenge ECW's most unlikely world champion, Mikey Whipwreck. The match would be for the world title that Mikey shocked everyone by beating the Sandman to win a few weeks earlier. Again, if you're interested in why Mikey was such a surprising champion, I have a video about him on this channel as well. The match airs in heavily trimmed highlights, but we see that Rey looked good against the ECW champion, but Mikey fought fire with fire, at one point hitting an impressive looking leg lariat on Rey, who was sitting on the top rope, and then a dive into the crowd. Mikey Whipwreck wins the match with a magistral cradle, and post-match the two show respect to each other, with Rey presenting the world title belt to Mikey. Match 5 took place on November 18th, one day after the Mikey Whipwreck match was taped at the November to Remember 95, again from the ECW arena. With both having one win each, Rey would look to end his feud with Psychosis in a Mexican death match. The match would air on Hardcore TV on the Christmas Eve episode. Joel Gertner explains that the match will end when a wrestler is pinned or submitted, then fails to answer a 10 count. Before the opening bell, Psychosis charges at Rey, but misses and hits the corner. Rey pins Psychosis very quickly, but as noted, this won't end the match. But it would anger Psychosis, who earns a series of 3 counts in retaliation. but Mysterio breaks the count each time. The undoing of Psychosis comes when he goes for a moonsault, but Rey holds his knees and the chair up. This allows Rey to go on the attack, at one point chasing Psychosis through the crowd with a chair. The end of the match comes when Rey pins Psychosis on a staging area, just beneath where the hard camera is positioned. He then makes his way back to the ring, and referee Jim Molyneux counts Psychosis out, and proclaims Rey the winner. This match would be the final ECW appearance for Psychosis until summer 2000, when he would have a brief 2-month return to the company, starting with the Heatwave pay-per-view in July. Psychosis and Rey would meet again under an ECW banner, technically, as they would face each other at One Night Stand 2005. That match is memorable for the fans heckling Psychosis to put his mask back on, which he removed after his entrance. While that would be their last singles meeting, their last ever would actually take place in 2018, during Rey's time away from WWE. At the Expo Lucha convention, Rey would team with the Lucha Brothers to face Psychosis, Super Crazy and Juventud Guerrera, who were not under their WWE name, nor anywhere near lawnmowers. Post-match, an altercation happens that sets up Rey's next match. Jason Knight comes out, and in a patronising manner offers to manage Rey. When Rey declines, he's attacked by the Eliminators. 911 comes out to even the odds, and he double chokeslams both Perry Saturn and John Kronos. The whole thing ends with Rey and 911 celebrating. Rey's next match, his first of 96, would happen on January 5th at House Party. The two would face the future 3-time tag team champions, the Eliminators. Bit of a trivia note here. The Eliminators also had their first ECW match at Gangsta's Paradise, just like Rey did, teaming with Jason Knight against Taz and the Steiner Brothers. Just let the idea of that trio sink in for a second. On the January 16th episode of Hardcore TV, the match from House Party would air. Rey's partner 911 is in the ring to confront Taz when he gets attacked by the Eliminators. The two beat him down, and Rey flies in to make the save, and manages to fight off both Eliminators for long enough for 911 to recover, and the match to go ahead. After repeated attacks by Taz, the odds are too much to overcome, or at least that's what it looks like. After Rey jumps off 911's shoulders and hits a Rana on Saturn, who was sitting on Kronos' shoulders. In the most extreme game of chicken, Rey's team manages to win the match. After the bell, the Eliminators attack Rey and hit Total Elimination. Total Elimination! Leading the Pitbulls to come out and chase them away. This entire mess is, as Jim Ross would say, bowling shoe ugly, but it makes for a wild brawl. Match 7 would be Rey's first ECW match outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. At the excellently titled Big Apple Blizzard Blast on February 3rd, Rey would defend the WWA welterweight title against another man he would have a series of matches with, Juventud Guerrera, though a 4th singles match with Psychosis was originally advertised. According to the Wrestling Observer's recap of the event, Juvi wasn't the original choice, but apparently Psychosis was stopped at the border because his visa had expired, so Rey Mysterio Jr. went back and brought Guerrera with him to New York, and the two didn't arrive until late. On this night though, at the Lost Battalion Hall in New York, which would air on the February 6th Hardcore TV, unlike in the debut of Rey and Psychosis, Juvi doesn't take large portions of the match, but Juvi still uses cheap shots where he can. Rey really gets the crowd when he Ranas Juvi off the apron to the floor. Rey then takes a chair and places it on Juvi's head, and then runs him into the ring post twice. Watching this made me think of the differences between this and Rey's first match, where he's an established star here against a newcomer to ECW fans. I quickly got taken out of this thought when a fan at ringside handed Guerrera a light bulb. However, nothing comes of this, as Juvi doesn't use it. When Juvi goes for a Splash Mountain powerbomb off the second rope, Rey counters with a Rana and pins him for the victory. On the following week's Hardcore TV, Rey wouldn't wrestle, but he would have a confrontation with a future ECW World Champion. Taz and his manager Bill Alfonso would interrupt Joey Styles in the ring, where Bill is ranting about 911. Rey comes out to admonish them for what Taz did to 911, and to tell them that he isn't scared of Taz. Apart from briefly turning down the services of Jason, this is the most we ever hear of Rey in ECW. Alfonso slaps Rey, so Rey wheel kicks him in retaliation, and a fight breaks out. Taz, who is noticeably bigger than Rey here, throws Ray around the ring and leaves him laying. Referees and wrestlers come out to check on Ray, but JT Smith is only there to put the boots to him and is stopped by Hack Myers. Ray is assisted by Damage Control, and Joey Styles tries to get the show back on track. The next time we would see Ray on ECW TV would be for his 8th and 9th matches. Match 8 would take place again in New York on March 8th, and Ray would face Juvi again, this time in a 2 out of 3 falls match, and the two would rematch the following night in the ECW arena at the 1996 Big Ass Extreme Bash. On the March 19th episode of Hardcore TV, Joey Styles announces that Ray's last match will be the main event of the show, before showing us highlights from the night before, where Juventud would win 2 falls to 1. The reason that we only got highlights of this match may well have been revealed in the Observer recap, as apparently nobody reacted to Guerrera, while Mysterio coming out only got polite applause. As they were doing amazing spots, a chant started of "We want Mascaras." Ray and Juvi would do all sorts to try and get the crowd invested, including a dive from Ray into the crowd and a scary looking brainbuster from the top rope, which Juvi would use to get the win. Interestingly, in the same newsletter, Dave notes that WWF were interested in bringing Rey Mysterio in, but nothing came of this. While on the surface, this might tell you that someone in WWE must have been keeping track of the young Rey, either in ECW or his work in Mexico. WWE still favoured bigger wrestlers in early '96, with Vader just arriving in the company, as well as Mabel, Diesel and Sid also being there. It's interesting to think about, but unlikely that Rey would have excelled quite like he did later on. Much like with Psychosis, Rey and Juvi had a long history that dates back to AAA. In WCW alone, the two wrestled 23 singles matches, most for the Cruiserweight Championship. Their final ever meeting to date was weirdly in Coventry, England in 2017. This was part of What Culture Pro Wrestling's World Cup series of events, where Rey would defeat Juvi to advance from the Mexican qualifiers to the international leg of the tournament. On the following night, Rey would have his final match in ECW. On the second night of the Big Ass Extreme Bash, this time back in the ECW arena, he would again face Juventud Guerrera. This event would also be the final night in ECW for Mick Foley, who would leave to the tune of New York, New York, while dancing with Stevie Richards and the Blue Meanie, like the worst Rockettes ever. To begin the match, Rey offers a handshake, to which Juvi spits at him, and Rey spits back. The two start with mat wrestling, but it doesn't take long before Juvi gets sent to the outside, and Rey hits a picture-perfect moonsault from the ropes. A loud ECW chant breaks out, as these fans are more accustomed to seeing Rey, and so this match is much better received. When back in the ring, Juventud hits a somersault kick from the ropes, and a dragon suplex to win the first fall. Highlights of the second fall include Rey leaping over referee John Finnegan to dive on Juvi, as well as a beautiful lionsault. He then blocks Juvi's dive attempt in mid-air with a dropkick, and hits a gut-wrench powerbomb to win the fall. In the final fall, Juventud dropkicks Rey off the top turnbuckle to the floor. The two make their way outside the ECW arena, and Rey hits a Hurricane Rana, jumping off a car hood onto Juventud. Back in the building, Juvi goes for Splash Mountain, but Rey counters into a Rana and pins Juventud for the victory. After the match, Rey puts what he's learned in ECW into practice by dragging Juventud outside the ring and powerbombing him through a table. The last we see of Rey Mysterio Jr. in ECW is him getting back in the ring to celebrate, while the fans loudly chant EC-Dub. So that's all of Rey's matches in ECW, and he would soon be heading to WCW. One thing that's noticeable is that of all the luchadors brought in around this time, Rey had the most matches and the longest tenure. Admittedly, it's hard to look back at these matches and not see him as the standout star, knowing the long career Rey would have and the many accolades he would win. From the way he's portrayed on screen though, it does feel like Paul Heyman knew that ECW had a promising talent in him. Rey would go on to World Championship Wrestling, where he would become a 6-time Cruiserweight Champion, among many, many other titles. Despite it only being 6 months, Rey's run may also have paved the way for many more luchadors to break into the US, and it started in the ECW arena. Thank you for watching yet another wrestling channel. If you enjoyed this, please comment, like or subscribe.